Hi there, and welcome to the third episode of the Deep Dive into Death. I'm your host, Malia Bayich, and today's episode is going to be all about me. So I figure that some of you might like to know why I'm here. So first of all, you can find me at findingrealm.com. And that's got a bunch of all my massage stuff on it as we're rebuilding my website still. So if you're interested in any of my death services, death education, grief support, death planning, advanced care planning, ritual, legacy, and visual, you can just email me at info@findingrealm.com. And of course, hold on, figuring out the slide things. You can follow me on X, YouTube, and Rumble. I got my logo on Rumble now, but still under Bayich. Okay, so let's get to this part. So how did I get here? Well, I was born with a cleft palate. So I've had 23 surgeries in my life, which means I've been under anesthetic 23 times. So as a child growing up, it was totally normal for me to go for surgeries. And I would leave my body all the time. So there were, I remember, just seeing myself down there. I remember going, she's awake, give her some more. Just little things like that. So I think I've always had this ability to be able to, I'll just say travel out of my physical realm, just from all those experiences in my life. When I was about, grade 9. When I was in grade 9, I remember hearing something to myself saying, you can manifest your reality. And I really wanted to go to Australia. So I decided to put the universe to the test. And of course, it ended up happening. I went to Australia, which was awesome. And so that was like a starting point in one angle that gave me the perspective that I knew how to create my own reality. Within all of that time growing up, my grandma used to tend to my great grandma all the time in the long care facility. And then my nanny, that's what I call her, nanny, she was in one herself with Alzheimer's for 13 years. So I spent a large chunk of my life in long care facilities, just helping volunteer, being a part of that world. I was a candy striper in the hospital in high school too, when we had the red and white striped dresses. So my childhood, I really got to grow up in that kind of medical, non-medical, institutionalized world. I was always a kid that liked to debate and argue about the creation of Earth. I remember grade 7 telling my teacher that wasn't how they built the pyramids. I think by my early 20s, I had discovered a little bit of Graham Hancock. Yeah, 23, somewhere in there. So my whole life, no matter what, has sort of been all about why we're here. I ended up going to Thailand when I was 21 and experiencing bodywork and massage, and I had a few experiences there that I knew this is what I wanted to do. So when I came back to school, I was in university for a year before I went to Thailand, anthropology, sociology, psychology, philosophy. And once again, they said I did really good, except that's not what they wanted to hear. So, F this, went to Thailand, got all this body work, and I was like, oh my God, this is the life I would love to live. So when I came back home, I ended up going into a program for a year. At that time, because this is 20 years ago, a little bit more than 20 years ago, it wasn't, the RMT course wasn't all across Canada. So BC wasn't equivalent to Alberta. And I just thought to myself, there's no way I'm going to indebt myself for 40 grand if I can't even go all across Canada. So I took one that was equivalent all across the United States. And then just over the years, kept self-educating myself through Reiki. So I managed my Reiki level 1, 2, 3 and teacher, Hawaiian back walking, Lomi Lomi, Thai yoga, tons of health conventions, learning about the body because I've always just been about self education. Um, I was a waitress when I was first starting to build my massage career. So I've been a professional, like, this is my building that we're in. And I've been owning my own business for over 14 years. But prior to that, I was working massage and waitressing, which was a really great way to learn energy because you're seeing people all the time, same people all the time. When they're getting sick, I could see that. It's a lot of fun, good customer service. Um, yeah, so at 20, no, my early 20s, I hit a dark night of the soul, which at that time I hadn't realized, but it was like the start of the shift. Um, the human body and just learning. And I had decided to myself that, I wanted to spend my career, you know, studying consciousness in the human body. And I was never going to learn that working in a professional building outside of my own personal space. So I became an entrepreneur. I built this building. Well, I gathered construction from the construction sites for the people that I was serving. And it was just like, if I build it, they will come. If I build it, they will come. And we've moved this building 3 times. So I'm trying to learn all the light angles, but this is like where all the magic happens for a long time. One of my altars, another one, some stuff. Yeah. Well, show you who I am. And so through my experiences of having people on the massage table, which is actually what the computer's sitting on right now, I just practiced and practiced and practiced. I massaged hundreds and hundreds of people and probably well over 1,000 hours over 14 years, right? Of just kind of, I'm going to say it this way, but like experimenting with what works and what doesn't work with people's bodies. So if somebody's got a rotator cuff problem, they would go see an RMT. But if somebody wants to get a shift into the cosmos, they would come see me. So I got really good at understanding how to hit somebody's parasympathetic nervous system. I guess we're going to get a little more technical. When I had my son, so I already had a kid, my daughter. And when my son was born, this was sort of the initiation for me into into it all in one angle. When my son was born, I think and so he spent 7 months rolling in and out of consciousness, almost dying, like every time he would go to sleep and try to get back up and turn blue. And so for 7 months, I sat there really being gaslit in all kinds of ways. Nobody believes you. This was almost 11 years ago. So whatever happened the last 4 years, this was so much easier for me to go through than back then. And I was reading Dolores Cannon at that time, and she just helped me shift some perspectives. Of course, he's all good now, and that was a lot of work. But in hindsight, now looking back, I can see that was the great initiation. We go through these dark nights of the soul, and they'll either take us down or they will elevate us to that next level. So after that time, my work started getting better and better. And then what happened? A few things happened, just like everybody, life goes on. And then about 5-6 years ago, was it? Yeah, probably something more about there. I was for a little bit before that, I was a practicing Buddhist at the Buddhist temple that we have in the town that I live in for 7, 8 years. And I was one of sort of like the personal assistants, cleaner, and a chopin at the temple, which is somebody who will do the rituals for the lamas or whoever's leading the ceremony or the practice that we're doing. So it's kind of like the altar girl. So that's a lot of where my rituals, and then I'd come back to the massage studio and I would rechange it again to suit my own needs. And then I'd rechange it and, you know, for years and years. At that time with my son, I used to put him right in front of the altar and be like, hey, this is for you and the universe to sort out. And I would just go clean. It was such a beautiful time. I loved it. You know, in some ways I totally miss it because it would just be me and these like amazing statues. Yeah, it was great. We were in a practice. So this is about 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm trying to go through this a little bit faster versus slower. So this is going to come up again when I start talking about shared death experiences in another show. But the long story short, and how I ended up as a death doula, we were in a 7-day retreat. And on the first day at the end of it, and in those retreats, we would like chant all day long and I'd be helping perform the rituals. So in that kind of altered state, we're probably naturally releasing some DMT, like you feel pretty high in one angle, right? Just saying. And I got a phone call from a friend that said another friend is in palliative care and he's in the hospital and you should come see him. So I go see him and I thought we were just having like this normal kind of conversation. Turns out I ended up being, and once again, the story's way deeper, but I'm just going for this short purpose, was the one that told him he was dying. Which was not good. Now that I know what I know, it would have went in a way different. I just had no idea because he was in palliative care. He's probably less than 100 pounds. He was a really physically active, tall guy before. So, I mean, he was super close to his death. And then that freaked him out, obviously, because nobody was talking about him dying. And I just didn't understand. Well, we hashed it out where it ended up being okay for like us. But when I went back into the meditation week, because that was the night of day 1, so I still had 6 days after that, I ended up during one practice in particular during that time frame where I'm just going to say transported into a different dimension. And in this space was me and my friend, and I was prepping him as a chopin. We kind of like prep people to work with the lamas. So I was like prepping him, and we had walked up these stairs and these big doors open. I still can have this whole visual of everything in my mind, clear as day to this day. He walks through, the door closes on me. I walk back down these stairs, and there was this endless lineup of people, and I could not see their faces. And I got to the bottom and just started prepping them, and they went up the stairs. At this time, I didn't know what a death doula was. I just was like, it took me a while to process it, to be honest with you, because I had this incredible, probably to this very day, one of the most amazing moments of my entire life. But because of what had transpired between him and me, it took me a long time to sort this out, because it was like this amazing moment and this like horrible moment all combined together. It was a learning lesson. Yeah. A little bit goes by and I start seeing the word death doula, end of life care, death doula. And it all kind of like, oh, isn't this interesting? So I just kind of sat with it for a bit, and all the work that I have done on the table, and I was having shared death experiences with people on the table. I just had not put this all together at that time, so it was all getting pieced together. And then finally, my mother-in-law has been going through cancer for a chunk of all this time as well. And when it came to the pretty much the time that she was dying, all of this bit before, like I knew that this is what I wanted to do. So if I could be with her in that way, this would be like the test. Well, she died, of course, through that experience. But for me and my experience with her, I thought, okay, this would be great. So I ended up getting into my doula program right after that. Like, I was the second to last person in. So when we're talking about manifesting, it's just everything's been showing up this way. I told my family, like, oh, okay, I'm going to be, this showed up. My stepdad says, well, sign me up, kid. Well, I know, like 9 months later, actually today's his year anniversary, that he would die too. And then my father-in-law. So my first year of being a doula, which was all last year, was basically seeing my family through their death. So this last year, to work out my own stuff, I've been working with Home Hospice Association, which is a registered charity across Canada. And I've been specializing in grant writings, which is, I never thought I would actually like, but it's really great because it's helping me learn language. And when we're talking about creating our realities, language is really important, because if you only use just a small amount, then that's your version of your reality. So if we can get our language bigger and clearer and more concise, you have way more potential in being in the realms that you'd like to be in. And alongside with my year-long practice, outside of my learning to be a death doula, so this last year, I have been also specializing in end-of-life care with people with diversities and developmental disabilities, and building a program between Nanaimo Association of Community Living and Home Hospice Association, so we can bring end-of-life care to this person-served population. And then I've also been working on how do we bring programs for how to talk to kids about death, dying, and grief. So I've been really busy in the background of this, I'm just going to say, like, the death industry, which has been really great for my own learning, to be able to actually be here on this show with you guys. Now, so that is the shortest version. So yeah, it's almost 18 minutes. So that's the shortest version of how I got from there to here. But there's a lot more in between. Yeah, isn't that funny? Okay, so let's go back to this one. Oh, nope, not that one. I'm learning, people. I'm learning. So once again, if you would like to work with me in any of these categories here of death education, grief support, death planning, advanced care planning, ritual planning, legacy, or visual, just shoot me an email over at info@findingrealm.com, and I will get a hold of you as soon as I can. And my next episode is going to be my very first interview with a dear friend, Shandora, who is a birth doula and has experienced a copious amount of death also in her life. And she said, I want to be the first person that you interview. So, you ready, Shandora? She'll be up next. Other than that, have a nice day. Bye.